Welcome to Those Odd Numbers podcast. My name is Jason Snider. I'm the founder and CEO of Main Street Financial Group. We are your fractional finance team.
I'm Summer McFarlen. I'm a CPA and certified tax coach. I'm also the co-owner of Main Street Tax Group, where we do strategic tax planning so you can keep more of what you earn.
I am Masheka Turner, and I am the owner of Bright Skies Business Services. We are your outsourced accounting firm and profit first strategies. And we are here to help you create wealth through your business by gaining clarity around your numbers. Good afternoon. Welcome to the Odd Numbers podcast. I am Masheka Turner, one of the hosts. And I have Jason Snider here and Summer McFarlen, and we are talking about marketing ROI today. First thing, I'll just start by saying this. If you are investing in marketing, let's make sure that it's really dialed in. What do I mean by that? If we are trying to talk to everybody, we are effectively talking to nobody. And so let's just really make sure that we're dialing in. Also, if we are working with firms or working with other people, how do we quantify dollars being spent? Because we find that right there is usually where the hole in the bucket starts, is you just throwing noodles at the wall, testing this, testing that, but not really quantifiable. And not only does it have to be qualifiable, but it also has to be quantifiable. So today we're going to dive into it.
The three of us have different industries that we have some working with or experience working with. And so we'll share some of those experiences as well. But, there's not a broad brush that we can paint for everybody to use when it comes to marketing, but there are some tenets that we've observed that are effective. And one that Masheka just mentioned is don't try to talk to everybody, because then you're talking to nobody. Be very intentional about your marketing. And when your marketing numbers tend to creep higher as far as your spend and your ROI tends lower, it's likely one of those strategies is mismatched, where you're trying to do too much with and not talking to the right people. Your numbers are going to reflect what you're doing, not the other way around.
That's true. And in our discussion before we started recording, I had to admit that I don't really market a whole lot. And I'm trying to, I am working on changing that. But the tax prep people, we are in high demand. And so my marketing has always been referrals. And then I do have a couple of strategic partners, some financial advisors, and some other people in that area that do send clients my way.
And I think the joke I think we were talking amongst ourselves earlier was you invested in your marketing credentials through your credentials in university and then the CPA exams and experience and things. So, because yes, it does have an impact in some industries. Having credentials, having registration, certifications can be of assistance in some particular industries and niches. But yeah, it's a hot topic, especially inside of the e-commerce world, where we have about 40-50% of our clients currently. Return on ad spend tends to be a top ROAS as the term, return on ad spend, because the mindset there is you're paying for eyeballs, you're paying for people to come through Facebook, through Google, these different platforms. And the mindset is that you want to return on those ads. And unfortunately, many of them measure revenue as opposed to profitability. And I understand why. It's not as easy to dive into the profitability where you're spending your money on ads and what the return SKUs, cost of goods, all kinds of different complications come into recording that. But it does tend to mislead a lot of e-commerce business owners, especially early on, because they're focusing on the revenue. And as we probably said many times in previous episodes and our previous conversations, revenue is vanity. It's not a we want to take a lot of decision-making influence. It's there to measure, of course. We want to know it, but when it comes to key decisions, you need a couple more layers down. Otherwise, it can mislead people, in my experience. I know, Masheka, you had some stories or some in your particular niches that you serve as well.
Yes. So first, I'm going to add a little bit to what you're saying. Revenue is definitely vanity. So I've taken a step further. I say revenue is vanity, Net income and cash in the bank is sanity because you can't do anything with nothing else. I don't care if you make $5 million a month. If you spend it all and you're in a hole, you can't do anything with that. So cash in the bank, net income, sanity. But so we work with mostly med spas, weight loss clinics, and mostly medical providers. And so that's what that industry looks like. So I have found that there is two school of thoughts when we go with this. First, I'll get into this revenue. So a lot of times, especially with weight loss clinics, when you're advertising, we're not looking just to fill the clinic up with clients. We're looking for clients that's really wanting long-term relationships, wanting clients that we can streamline services to, and a regular client. Because sometimes what can happen is if you turn it on and you get a lot of people in the door, but a lot of times they're looking for a one-hit wonder or discount, or and you can end up with a full clinic and busy, but not a lot of money on the net income. So that's why I'm saying not only are we niching down and drilling down to industry, we're also niching down and drilling down to the customer that we want. So the more we know about the problem that we want to solve, the more we can really speak to the people that we're trying to get into the door, if that makes sense.
Yep. And it'd be similar concept there on the marketing side. There's direct marketing, if you will, speaking to a niche or a particular audience. And there's branding marketing, which most of our clients that we're working with, I would imagine, are going to be in the latter, which is the former, which is the direct, where you're trying to speak to a specific audience. Coca-Cola, Geico, other big brands are doing branding campaigns, and so they have different metrics so we're not going to spend much time on that part of it. Ours is going to be direct audience attention is what we're really going to be talking about in this particular discussion. Is branding campaigns are pretty esoteric as far as how you're going to measure, and it's a lot more difficult to get down to what the ROI ends up being. But I don't know if either of you have experienced this, but I tend to see clients that look at the ROI, they're going to get a particular result with it and not spending much time reflecting on how well their marketing is doing, not just on the spend side, but also the execution side. The tendency tends to default towards, hey, I'm spending X number of dollars a month. Where's my ROI? That tends to be one. The other one is just plug and play. Like they're going to invest some money and they're going to get X number of dollars in sales out of it. They tend towards either one of those. The two of you experience something like that as well with your clients?
I'm strategic. We want to, so I want to keep bringing it back to that because we definitely want to be strategic. And I would imagine, especially when we're doing like ads, social media ads, Google ads specifically, we can spend a lot of money and not really get what we want. There always has to be that switch in there to measure what you're doing, how you're doing it, and exactly who you are reaching out to. Because you're always going to have to spend for the click, but that doesn't mean that you're going to get anything from it. So there's definitely a lot. There's a lot that goes into this. And I think we just think, okay, you put it out there, people are going to come. And it doesn't necessarily work like that.
No, it does not.
I have to do more. I just can't spend my
You
profit.
just can't throw money at the problem.
As they say, making it rain.
Yeah. So tell me, what are some good KPIs to track for your marketing spend?
One way
clicks might be one.
Yeah, and those could be specific ones. Another way, I think a couple approaches that you can use depending on where the knowledge and the particular industry that the client has. One is when we're doing our first profit assessment, when we onboard a client, we're looking back at their previous spend in marketing and ads and coming up with a percentage for that, because that's usually one of the accounts that we will recommend that they separate out.
Have a separate account for marketing.
Separate account so they get visibility, and we also include it, as we talked in a previous episode about activity-based costing, is including those other inputs that are supportive of taking those actions as well. And things. So there's that part of it. And so we're trying, if the client doesn't have any history with that, then we're at least starting with a 10 to 15% for budgeting purposes, assuming that they're going to be able to execute on that. Now, if they're not ready for that, we're obviously not going to recommend that they spend any money around marketing until they're ready to perform on being able to either onboard. If they have service issues, we want them addressing that first before taking on new clients and trying to seek out new clients. So it's a little bit more nuanced, but if I have those in place, then I don't have any history, then I'm going to start with a 10 to 15% marketing spend range for budgeting.
Do you advise your clients? I know you've got some big hairy goals this year for revenue, get revenue, monthly recurring revenue. And so what are you tracking, or what are your tracking?
So the first thing is whatever we're using. So whether we're using a firm or whether we're doing it ourselves, do we have the data to actually let us know what we're spending? Because you never want to go at this blind. So for example, if you're supposed to get so many appointments a month, if you're supposed to get whatever it is, we want to make sure that is actually dialed in, and what you were guaranteed on the front end, that you're actually getting it. And I'm finding that there's so many, the marketing industry niche down to certain industries. I'm finding that's like really emerging. So there are a lot of people, all they do is market to med spas. There's people that all they do is market to accountants. We know that.
Yeah.
And
get an email 2 times a day from them.
That's exactly what it is. So one of the first things I'm always going to ask is, what are the tools that are being used so that we can quantify everything that we're doing around this marketing activity? But I also wanted to go back to touch on a little bit something that Jason said. I don't want to change the subject, but I do want to bring this up. Marketing is very expensive. It's also, it's a lot of energy and effort that goes to that. We want to make sure the operations is where it needs to be. Because if you are marketing, getting eyes and interest in your business, and it's a revolving door because people are not being served the way they want to be served, or their customer experience is not where it needs to be, that's flushing money down the drain too. So not only do we want to be dialed in with the marketing, I almost feel like you need to make sure the operations is up to par first. Otherwise, you're just spinning your wheels on the hamster wheel. And we never want to be in that position.
Right.
Yeah, because then that leads to some very bad Google reviews, right? If you can't serve the client according to what you promised or to their expectations.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely don't want to have money chasing clients when you're not ready and prepared for that additional business. Yeah, you need the
right.
also feeding recommendations as well.
That's it. I mean, because a current client or a current customer is always going to be way cheaper than trying to attract new ones.
Yeah. We figured out we spend about 10 to 15% of that client revenue when we do market, right? Cost us about 10 to 15%. So that's pretty hefty investment. I know I do work with dentists and some medical, and the dentists tend to spend about, industry standard is about 5 to 10% on their marketing. So
yeah, and in the profit first sense of, I think I mentioned earlier about having an account set up for this also can be a good guidance indicator of getting away from potentially overspending again, because the tendency I've observed tends towards, hey, if I just increase it, I'm doing this, I'm getting this ROI. If I just add this many more dollars, this is going to be the same exact result. It's not linear. It's gonna flow, ebb and flow, and go up and down based on lots of factors. And it's not a dollar for dollar ROI return or a percentage return based on every dollar that you spend. It's not going to be that way. And so you don't want to fall into that trap. And so Prop First is a great way to limit those tendencies. Okay, I've only got 2,000 in my marketing account. What am I going to do with it to be more effective? It promotes some of those mindsets we were talking about earlier and things. And so that's why we end up many times putting it as one of the accounts so that they gain that visibility, and also inserting that mindset into them that, hey, these are the resources I have to what can we do with it?
Yeah. And so I'll just say this. So I do something similar for my own self. So I don't have a marketing account per se, because they take it off the credit card every month. But what I've done is I've figured out what that's going to be every month, what that percentage is. And every time I allocate money, I go ahead and send that to the credit card, because not only can I get the points because it's not there, but I'm also paying that off as I go. So I don't have to worry about it.
For our e-commerce listeners out there, I know many of them have programs through their credit card issuing bank where in some cases I've observed that Google ads, Facebook ads will have additional points or miles that they'll add to that particular card. And so designate a card. It's something we've done with clients is, okay, you want to use the credit card, here's the way you're going to do it. You're going to funnel money through your ads account, and then you're going to make payments directly to that card and keep paying it on a weekly basis is what we end up teaching. And that has been pretty effective in keeping that so it doesn't become at the end of the month, oh, I have a $40,000 Facebook ads bill that I didn't plan for, or I'm going to pull from OpEx to do. We want to separate it out, and especially when it's in e-commerce, because that tends to be one of the big spends percentage-wise of their revenue, that we get that set aside flowing in the right direction so it doesn't become a surprise where they overspend in some other area.
I agree.
Yep. All very good information and very good tips.
And then I guess the one thing I'll insert as well as we're getting close to the end, I think of intentionality, like Masheka mentioned earlier at the beginning, of talking to who you want to talk to. You could have different marketing if you're having different audiences. So she mentioned about med spas. We have an e-commerce niche. We have also a contractors niche. Obviously, the same terms are not going to apply to that. We want to speak directly to them. And so we have different approaches to that. And if I just looked at overall marketing ad spend, or marketing and sales spend, as we call it, and not look at those different execution parts of it, of being intentional, where we're spending our money. The numbers tell part of the story. I need to be accountable economically, but also I need to understand the inputs that we're putting into both of those channels and things. And so there's some value in, if you have a larger business that has different niches that you're talking to, you may even explore setting up separate accounts just for those particular ad spends and niches that you're trying to serve and things, because you don't want to be intentional with what you're doing, and also getting into your, as I think, operation or execution, as I refer to it, is being intentional with where you're spending your time resources as well. You can't focus on everything. You can't talk to everybody. You can't spend money like everybody. Be intentional with everything you're doing. Marketing, I think, it serves really well to be very intentional throughout.
I think that might be one of the most important things when you're marketing, putting together a program, talking with the person that's going to be doing your marketing, is to come up with what I call a ICP, your ideal client profile. I actually stole that from a book I've been reading. That way, you know who your customers, clients are that you're trying to attract. You got to speak their language. They got to know what their problems are and how you're going to solve them, help them solve their problems. That's just one benefit among many of developing your ideal client profile.
Yes, I like that. And I definitely agree with that. One thing too that I always recommend too, specifically if you're investing with firms or investing with people, it's very helpful to find somebody that's actually experienced in that industry. In that they're not marketing to the dog groomer, they're not marketing to the doctor, they're not marketing to the lawyer. They are niche specific, because a lot of times quickly they can help you also identify some holes in your marketing plan because they work with those industries.
Some of them may even be from those industries. I listened to a podcast a few weeks ago it was an accountant. She was an accountant, discovered she loved marketing much more than accounting, and left the accounting industry to open her own marketing firm, and she serves accountants. Yeah, there's a lot of validity in that.
And I'll add to you mentioned about agencies, as I often refer to them, marketing agencies, is set the parameters of the relationship. What's success for everybody? Be clear with them. Hey, this is my expectations, and then have them state theirs or what they're looking for. I think far too many professional relationships, agency relationships, you just default to what the agreement says. And I would be intentional from the beginning and even try to get them to insert that language or memorialize it, even if it's not a legal obligation per se, but at least you can document it. This is the expectation of what we're trying to achieve. If I don't do this, then this is not serving our business and our needs. And an example would be, great, you could deliver all these likes, you could deliver all this traffic, but if I don't convert it, what's the point of me spending the money? So this is my expectation. Yes, your responsibility is delivering X number of clicks or responses or calls, whatever that metric is. But if they don't convert to sales, then what's the point? And
Absolutely.
so those are things you want to be open and communicative about. And the professional may push back on that, but it's all connected. And so if their part of it isn't delivering what you needs for you, then what's the point of the spend?
I agree. Is there anything we want to add to this topic? I think this has been a great discussion and very helpful.
And so, as there's always more we could always add, but we have to cut it off at some point
Yes.
and either another episode or answer questions on the road around that. But I think hopefully
Yeah.
this helps everybody.
I do have a book recommendation. If you have determined that your people are on LinkedIn, maybe LinkedIn is the way to market to your people with content. The LinkedIn Edge by Jeb Blunt, Blount, and Bryn Tillman. I'm going through that book right now in a mastermind that I'm in. It's been very helpful. And the chapters are really short. And they always have an action item. So you read your little tiny 3-4 page chapter and do your action item. So
I love that. And LinkedIn definitely works. I was about 80% of my pipeline came from LinkedIn in 2019 and 20. And then it seems like everybody jumped over there and then I needed to change the strategy, but it does work.
Look forward to seeing you again next week on our next episode.
this content is for general informational purposes only and is based on current law and guidance as of the date of recording. Tax law and regulations are subject to change. This discussion should not be considered tax, legal, or investment advice. Listeners should consult their own tax or financial professional regarding their specific situation.